The world of Dune is inherently a hostile place, filled with cruel fanatics, immoral rulers, and quite terrifying things. Yet, even among all other horrors, there is one faction that stands out unpleasantly: the Bene Tleilax, or simply Tleilaxu. This particularly secretive race significantly influenced the processes within the Empire from the shadows. The Tleilaxu pursued their own goals, exploiting the contradictions within the Empire, supporting opposing sides and contending with particularly strong players. The Bene Tleilax were guided by their own twisted morality and religious principles, which they hid from others. They were incredibly dangerous and powerful, as evidenced by the events following Paul Atreides' ascension to the throne. Let's talk about who the Tleilaxu were, what they plotted, why everyone hated them, and what eventually happened to them in this video. The history of the Tleilaxu began even before the Butlerian Jihad, when the Titans overthrew the old empire and seized power, becoming true dictators. Some groups of people, united by their beliefs and views, began to leave the Titans' empire and settle on remote worlds. These worlds were called the Unjoined Planets because they were not part of the Titans' empire and also did not join the League of Nobles, which opposed the Titans. One of these unjoined planets was Tleilax, where people who professed Buddhism, including its two variants, Zen Sunni and Zen Sufi, incidentally the Fremen were also Zen Sunnis, so they might have had common ancestors with the Tleilaxu, arrived. However, over time, the inhabitants of Tleilax hid their religion and became widely known in the League as merchants and slavers. Tleilax scientists were known geneticists and cloners by the time of the Butlerian Jihad, and the planet was famous for its supposed organ farming operations. During the war against the thinking machines, due to increased demand, slaves were taken as organ reservoirs, a secret that was kept by the great patriarch, Iblis Ginjo. His companion, Xavier Harkonnen, learned about this and was able to stop Ginjo at the cost of his own life. Eventually, this was exposed by Vorian Atreides, to whom Xavier Harkonnen had told, and public opinion turned against genetic researchers. An enraged mob destroyed the organ farms, and much of Tleilax went underground, hated by the League. After Phaekan Butler founded the new Carino Empire, replacing the League after the Battle of Carino, Tleilax began to emerge from the shadows. During this period, the first masters of Tleilax began to appear, starting with the Great Sutta, marking the beginning of their transformation into the Tleilaxu. Over the following decades, during which the Butlerian movement was the dominant force in the empire, the main worlds of the Tleilaxu were thoroughly scrutinized by the Butlerians. Many of their projects, which the movement deemed evil, were forcibly seized, to the great horror of the Tleilax masters. Over the next 10,000 years, Tleilax became the Bene Tleilax, and by the end of these millennia, they had gained the favor of House Carino, although they were still hated throughout the empire. The Tleilaxu were unburdened by ethical constraints and dilemmas. They were obsessed with their science and stopped at nothing to achieve the desired results. Stopping at nothing here means genetic experiments, special farms for growing organs, creating new intelligent species, and transforming their own bodies. For example, the Tleilaxu masters, who were part of the ruling council, could live for hundreds of years, if not more. Let's list just a few of the Tleilaxu's creations. Twisted Mentats. Ordinary Mentats, trained in official schools, were simply very talented and outstanding people who were helped to develop their intellectual abilities. The Tleilaxu, however, made their own Mentats, who, in addition to training, underwent genetic transformation that twisted and emphasized certain traits, often vicious ones. Golas. Golas are clones derived from human genetic material. A Gola was completely under the control of its creators. Eventually, the Tleilaxu learned how to make a clone awaken the original's memories. Axolotl tanks. It was in these tanks that Gola clones were grown. For a long time, no one knew what the axolotl tanks were, But it eventually turned out that they were Tleilaxu women who had been altered beyond recognition by men, leaving them with only an enlarged womb for endless embryo cultivation and disabling all other bodily functions. Face dancers. This special race was bred by the Tleilaxu. At first glance, face dancers appeared as ordinary people, but they were hardly that. Face dancers could so skillfully control their body's musculature that they completely changed their appearance, both facial features and even physique. Particularly talented face dancers could even copy a person's personality and access their memory. Face dancers became the ideal spies and warriors for the Tleilaxu. The Tleilaxu were originally an isolationist culture dominated by a strict hierarchy and predominant religious zeal. They focused their efforts on genetics and the pursuit of spiritual elevation through physical perfection for a long time. The Tleilaxu adhered to a strict and fervent spiritual ideology that stemmed from both Zen Sunni and Zen Sufi technology. Like most cultures in the known universe, their faith was monotheistic. The Tleilaxu were divided into several different classes, each with a distinct appearance and role in their society. The main groups were Tleilaxu masters. Physically, they resembled small people, most often with closely set small eyes and a set of small, pointed teeth. They occupied the highest place in the hierarchy. Axolotl tanks. Slightly more than incubation vessels, this class was needed to birth all Tleilaxu, as well as other beings, such as Golas. It is believed that this was what remained of the Tleilaxu female sex. Face dancers. A class of warriors and workers who were able to adapt their appearance to a specific task. Their doppelganger ability was also used for espionage. In the last years of House Carino's rule over the empire, a notable Tleilaxu researcher named Hidar Fen Ajidika presented a plan for synthesizing spice to Emperor Elrod Carino IX, and convinced him to allow the Tleilaxu to take over the planet Ix, which belonged to House Vernius. The Tleilaxu had long been attempting to fully synthesize spice, and Ajidika had come closest to solving this problem. He foresaw the Tleilaxu hegemony over the entire known universe and sent colonial ships with enhanced face dancers to prepare the way for his rule. The Amal Project, as the synthetic spice enterprise was called, nevertheless collapsed because the planet Ix was reconquered by House Vernius. Ajidika died from an overdose of his own alternative spice, and all contact with his enhanced face dancers was lost. From this brief episode, it is clear that the Tleilaxu's goal was quite simple: power over the entire known universe. They sought to increase their might to eventually become the dominant force in all inhabited worlds. That's why they fiercely opposed the emergence of the Kwisatz Haderach, Paul Atreides, who threatened their plans with his powerful gift of foresight. They organized an assassination attempt on him, and later secretly opposed his son, the God Emperor Leto II Atreides. Centuries later, the Tleilaxu would attempt to create their own Kwisatz Haderach, and they actually succeeded, but it was too late to help. The Bene Tleilax faced a remarkable and interesting fate when the Golden Path, a plan to save humanity, was implemented by Leto II. The Atreides Empire collapsed, and billions and trillions of people rushed into uncharted regions of the universe, leaving the Empire's boundaries. Among those who left the fallen Empire were the Axolotl tanks, Tleilaxu women who managed to break free from male control. It's not hard to guess that the Tleilaxu women genuinely hated their men, who had tormented and used them in their experiments for millennia. During the scattering, the Tleilaxu women united with the warrior women Order of the Fish Speakers, as well as part of the fleeting Bene Gesserit missionaries. Together they formed a new force, the Honored Madres. Many years after the scattering ended, the descendants of some of the forces that had left began returning to the territory of the former empire. At this time, the remaining Bene Tleilax finally approached their goal of conquering the entire known world. they produced an incredibly powerful Gola of Duncan, Idaho, to use in their plans. However, the returning Honored Madres, burning with vengeance, destroyed the planet Tleilax and all the worlds belonging to the Tleilaxu. It seemed that the story of the Order of Mad Scientists should end there, but not quite. It turned out that during the scattering, part of the Tleilaxu had also ventured into unknown regions, and they too returned, forming a new Bene Tleilax order. In their travels, they encountered the enhanced face dancers that Hidarfen Ajidika had sent into space thousands of years ago, and they took them under control. The Tleilaxu discreetly placed these face dancers, who could not be unmasked, in the highest positions of power. However, they did not know that the artificial intelligence Erasmus, along with Omnius, had been preparing the return of the thinking machines and an epic revenge against humanity. Eventually, a war of machines against humans began, and the face dancers holding key positions in the Imperium greatly aided the machines. However, humans and robots eventually reconciled and formed an alliance, and then Erasmus destroyed all the face dancers he had reprogrammed with a single move. The remaining members of the Tleilaxu, together with the new Kwisatz Haderach, Duncan, Idaho, the robot Erasmus, and the new Sisterhood, united and put aside their differences. And that's all from me. If you like this video, don't forget to rate it, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell. Your activity is the best reward for me. Thank you for your attention. See you soon. Bye.